The Rockies youth movement, Tovar, Rogers, Doyle, Jordan Beck got hurt, but there's promise there. That Nolan Jones is hurt, but hopefully that won't be terribly longer. Some of the youth movement, some of these guys are going to stick. They're players. And when you're a bad team with young players, you want to jumpstart that by getting more young players, right? You want to keep that rolling so everyone sort of matures at the same time. Diaz is 33 years old. Perfect trade candidate. But a sell-high type of guy. The guy that's really sell-high is McMahon, who's 29, finally having the best year of his career. The Rockies aren't going to turn things around. McMahon signed for a long time after this year. If the Rockies continue to get better, they turn things around, let's say maybe 3-4 years. And McMahon's 33 at that point. But the Rockies ownership historically has so much loyalty over its own players that it gets in their own way of growth. If Ryan McMahon is going to get you serious prospects from the Blue Jays, by the way, go check the young players the Blue Jays have. That's a team you want to negotiate with and get some prospects off of. Or the Chicago Cubs want to make a run at your 33-year-old catcher that's going to be a free agent after the year. Teams in that situation almost always make those deals. Those are the guys. It's not a matter of if they'll get traded. It's when they'll get traded, right? When you're a team that's going to lose 100 games, or maybe the Rockies play well and just stay in the 90s, but they're going nowhere. They're last place in the NL West. They're not going to make a run. That's the reality. Those teams take their remaining top-tier trade candidates and they move them for more youth. And it's for two reasons. One, so the youth can all grow up together and you don't have guys in their 30s languishing on bad teams that don't really bring anything that are going to make a difference between 100 losses or 90 losses or a playoff run. Ryan McMahon and Elias Diaz can't do that by themselves. So why are they still here except for loyalty when they can bring you returns? Two, when you talk about Tovar, they already signed him to an extension. Just a smart move. That's what's happening across.
He's untouchable.
It's what's happening across baseball,
untouchable.
Right? Young players that show they can play, they get extensions right off the bat because you can sign them for cheaper than waiting in free agency. But that means money too. So why not free up a little bit more money? Diaz and McMahon, who makes a good amount of money, not Chris Bryant money, but on the team, he's right up there. Why not make those moves while you can? Sell high to actually jumpstart your rebuilding process. I understand that the Monforts in general want to believe in their guys and they want to believe they can compete every year. But even they, Sandy, after all these years, have to understand this team is not going to the playoffs. It is in the middle of a rebuild. And here's the thing. The rebuild actually looks like it's working. So lean in.
Dick Monfort was in operational control of the Rockies a little more than 20 years ago. They had a pitcher named Pedro Stasio, who was an effective pitcher, but an older pitcher. And the Rockies had a chance to trade him. And there were some pretty decent offers out there at the time. And what happened was the Monforts, and Charlie was maybe a little more involved then than he is now, quite a bit more involved than he is now. And their excuse for not even considering any of those offers was that Pedro Stasio was a fan favorite and the fans would react badly if he were traded.
Same thing for Dexter Fowler for years.
The Rockies may have had fan favorites at the time, but a pitcher who had some baggage was not one of them.
No.
And I think that will be the excuse this time, and that's why I mentioned the attendance at the game last night.
Right. I think they will use that same thing.
21,374
fans will fall
announced. Well, the fans won't come to the games if we trade Ryan McMahon. He's a quote-unquote fan favorite.
Right.
Apart from maybe Tovar, who, as I said, is untouchable, and I've often said yes in the past that teams like the Rockies don't have untouchable players. There are always exceptions to that. Tovar is not going anywhere, nor should he be traded. There shouldn't be any consideration of trading Ezequiel Tovar. McMahon's a different story for all the reasons that you just outlined. And yet the excuse will be, we're loyal to our fans. That'll be the argument. Mm-hmm. And our fans love Ryan McMahon.
They're okay
Ryan
with
McMahon's
watching
a nice
mediocre
guy,
baseball as long as Ryan McMahon's on the field, apparently. That's the argument?
No, the fans aren't coming out.
Right.
The Rockies don't have a fan favorite right now. They don't have a single player. Wasn't Chris Bryant supposed to do this? Who big enough name,
What?
right? World Series champion, right? Former National League MVP. Charlie Blackmon at one time was a fan favorite.
Sure.
He doesn't play regularly enough to bring fans in. The Rockies don't have a pitcher who, when it's his turn to start at Coors Field, brings fans in.
That includes Kyle Freeland, when healthy.
Kyle Freeland did some of that 6 years ago when he was going well and was fourth in the Cy Young voting in the National League. They don't have a fan favorite. That's a lame excuse, but mark my words, if they don't make any moves, and in fairness, they made some moves at the deadline last year. Not huge moves, but they shuffled the roster. They took regular players and did trade them last year. None of them were as good as Ryan McMahon, but Ryan McMahon would bring more in return than any of those other people would. He would bring multiple prospects in return, and the Rockies should make that deal, but they won't because he is a fan favorite.
And I would argue that not only would that be a mistake for all the baseball reasons, but it's just a mistake for even fan reasons who I think they want to see the Rockies aggressively try to get better. They understand they're not a good team. They understand there's a youth movement, but you're right, Sandy. Right now, the Rockies this season averaging 27,070 fans. That is 17th in baseball.
Below average.
At its home field, and that is never where the Rockies are, even when they're bad. And as you pointed out, there's always a lag time with this when it comes to attendance.
It'll take more than a month of good baseball to bring the fans back.
More than a month. And that means you need to invest in good baseball over a time period, sustained good baseball. And that means getting better prospects and building the team as a whole.